Hey crew, it's Pitt and I'm back with some more Esoterica, kinda. We're going to be starting the Master Key system today. It's a brand new study for us. We are going to be reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points of interest that are brought to light by the text. It's not the format for everybody, but some people seem to get enjoyment from it, so you are more than welcome to tag along with us as we begin this exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above, the box down below, along with the original source material so that you can get a better understanding of exactly why I say the things that I do. With that being said, we are going to dive in and begin our exploration of the Master Key system. Introduction. This is going to count as a groundwork video. There's not really a whole lot to add to it. Mr. Haanel, right? This is Charles F. Haanel. He was a Mason. He was part of the Shriners. He was the guy that inspired a lot of other systems. He is the credit for The Secret. He is who Napoleon Hill referred to as being his biggest influence in his system. So this is kind of a groundwork before we get to Napoleon Hill. There's not really a whole lot to add on who Haanel is, though. So we're just going to read the introduction and see where it leads us. Before any environment, successful or otherwise, can be created, action of some kind is necessary. That would be one of the 8 laws of creation. And before any action is possible, there must be thought of some kind, either conscious or unconscious. And as thought is a product of mind, it becomes evident that mind is the creative center from which all activities proceed. Yes, if you can't think of it and conceive it, it cannot happen. It is not expected that any of the inherent laws which govern the modern business world, as it is at present constituted, can be suspended or repealed by any force on the same plane, but it is axiomatic that a higher law may overcome a lower one. Tree life causes the sap to ascend, not by repealing the law of gravity, but by surmounting it. To control circumstances, a knowledge of certain scientific principles of mind action is required. Such knowledge is a most valuable asset. It may be gained by degrees and put into practice as fast as learned. Power over circumstances is one of its fruits. Health, harmony, and prosperity are assets upon its balance sheet. It costs only the labor of harvesting its great resources. The naturalist, who spends most of his time in observing visible phenomena, is constantly creating power in that portion of his brain set apart for observation. The result is that he becomes very much more expert and skillful in knowing what he sees and grasping an infinite number of details at a glance than does his unobserving friend. He has reached this facility by exercise of his brain. He deliberately chose to enlarge his brain power in the line of observation, so he deliberately exercised that special faculty over and over with increasing attention and concentration. Now we have the result. A man learned in the lore of observation far above his fellows. Or, on the other hand, one can, by stolid inaction, allow the delicate brain matter to harden and ossify until his whole life is barren and fruitless. Every thought tends to become a material thing. Our desires are seed thoughts that have a tendency to sprout and grow and blossom and bear fruit. We are sowing these seeds every day. That is true. The things that you think about are indeed what becomes reality. We talk about that quite often. If you are focusing your energy on the negative, then the negative will be brought to you. If you are focusing your energy on the positive, then the positive is being brought to you. The things which you speak aloud amplifies that. So if you are thinking negative thoughts and then you say negative thoughts, it is a multiplying factor that comes back to you. It is the same with positive thoughts. If you are thinking positive thoughts and you speak positive thoughts, it is a multiplication factor coming back to you. And the initial factor for that is 3. What shall the harvest be? Each of us today is the result of his past thinking. Later we shall be the result of what we are now thinking. We create our own character, personality, and environment by the thought which we originate or entertain. Thought seeks its own. A law of mental attraction is an exact parallel to the law of atomic affinity. Mental currents are as real as electric, magnetic, or heat currents. We attract the currents with which we are in harmony. Are we selecting those which will be conducive in our success? This is the important question. Lines of least resistance are formed by the constant action of the mind. The activity of the brain reacts upon the particular faculty of the brain employed. The latent power of the mind is developed by constant exercise. Each form of its activity becomes more perfect by practice. Exercises for the development of the mind present a variety of motives for consideration. They involve the development of the perceptive faculties, the cultivation of the emotions, the quickening of the imagination, the symmetrical unfoldment of the intuitive faculty, which, without being able to give a reason, frequently impels or prohibits choice, and finally, the power of the mind may be cultivated by the development of the moral character. I don't think that should be the final consideration. I think that should indeed be the first. The greatest man, said Seneca, is he who chooses right with invincible determination. The great power of the mind, then, depends upon its existence in moral channels, and therefore requires that every conscious mental effort should involve a moral end. A developed moral consciousness modifies consideration of motives and increases the force and continuity of actions. Consequently, the well-developed symmetrical character necessitates good physical, mental, and moral health, and this combination creates initiative, power, resistless force, and necessary success. Right? We talk all of the time about these three right here. Right? Focusing on the positive is going to bring you positive results. You should be making sure that you are thinking the correct things, right? That would be mental health. Moral health is you taking the correct actions. You should be doing the things which you know are right. If you have asked for forgiveness from God and He has written His law in your heart, then you know what those things are. Morality changes over time. It is not necessarily what the tribe has agreed upon for ethics, but it is what you consider to be the right thing. And then the physical is, of course, exercise in the temple. You should be doing the best thing you can for your temple. This is the temple, this is the soul, this is the spirit, right? You should be doing everything you can for the temple, the body that you navigate in 5D space. You should be doing everything you can for it. You should be eating healthily. You should be regularly exercising. You should be making the choices which you know are leading to the betterment of your temple. That is what you should be doing. Now, whether you do it or not is your free will. It will be found that nature is constantly seeking to express harmony in all things, is forever trying to bring about an harmonious adjustment for every discord, every wound, every difficulty. Therefore, when thought is harmonious, nature begins to create the material conditions, the possession of which is necessary in order to make up an harmonious environment. When we understand that mind is the great creative power, what does not become possible? With desire as the great creative energy, can we not see why desire should be cultivated, controlled, and directed in our lives and destinies? Men and women of strong mentality who dominate those around them and often those far removed from them really emanate currents charged with power which, coming into contact with the minds of others, causes the desires of the latter to be in accord with the mind of the strong individuality. Great masters of men possess this power to a marked degree. Their influence is felt far and near, and they secure compliance with their wishes by making others want to act in accord with them. In this way, men of strong desire and imagination may, and do, exert powerful influence over the minds of others, leading the latter in the way desired. The magnetic persons attract, allure, and draw. They are emotional and capture the will of others. No man is ever created without the inherent power in himself to help himself. The personality that understands its own intellectual and moral power of conquest will certainly assert itself. It is this truth which an infammed world craves today, the possibility of asserting a slumbering intellectual courage that clearly discerns, and a moral courage that grandly undertakes is open to all. There is a divine potency in every human being, truth. We speak of the sun as rising and setting, though we know that this is simply an appearance of motion. To our senses, the earth is apparently standing still, and yet we know it is revolving rapidly. We speak of a bell as a sounding body, yet we know that all that the bell can do is produce vibrations in the air. When these vibrations come at the rate of 16 a second, they cause a sound to be heard in the mind. It is possible for the mind to hear vibrations up to the rate of 38,000 a second. When the number increases beyond this, all is silence again, so that we know that the sound is not in the bell, it is in our own mind. That is both true and untrue, right? Like if you can't hear it, that doesn't mean that the sound isn't there. It just means that you're unable to perceive it, and that's really kind of what it's talking about. But the bell does actually emanate the sound, so that is an important distinction to make. Like, even if you can't see it, there is light. If you're blind, other people can still see the light. It's just not relevant to you. So, and yes, that is in part what they're trying to say, but it is important to note that these things are true regardless. We speak and even think of the sun as giving light. Yet we know it is simply giving forth energy which produces vibrations in the ether at the rate of 400 trillion a second, causing what are termed light waves, so that we know that what we call light is simply a mode of motion, and the only light that there is the sensation caused by the mind, by the motion of these waves. And again, yes and no, right? When the number of vibrations increases, the light changes in color, each change in color being caused by shorter and more rapid vibrations. So that although we speak of the rose as being red, the grass as being green, or the sky as being blue, we know that these colors exist only in our minds and are the sensation experienced by us as the result of the vibrations of light. When the vibrations are reduced below 400 trillion a second, they no longer affect us as light, but we experience the sensation of heat. So we have come to know that appearances exist for us only in our consciousness. Even time and space become annihilated, time being the only experience of succession, there being no past or future except as a thought relation to the present. That is really trying to do something that shouldn't, right? This is an overanalyzation, basically. Yes, the past does exist. No, the future doesn't really, but the past does. Now, a thought relation to the present, that is trying to overcomplicate something that is really simple. The past has happened. You cannot affect it, and yes, it is a relation to your memory of it, but in the last analysis, therefore, we know that one principle governs and controls all there is. Every atom is forever conserved. That is the first law of creation. Whatever is parted with us must inevitably be received somewheres. It cannot perish, and it only exists for use. It can only go where it is attracted and therefore required. We can receive only what we give, and we may give only to those who can receive. And it remains with us to determine our rate of growth and the degree of harmony that we shall express. The laws under which we live are designed solely for our advantage. These laws are immutable, and we cannot escape from their operation. All the great eternal forces act in solemn silence, but it is in our power to place ourselves in harmony with them and thus express a life of comparative peace and happiness. Difficulties, inharmonies, obstacles indicate that we are either refusing to give out what we no longer need or refusing to accept what we require. That is largely true, yes. Growth is attained through an exchange of the old for the new, of the good for the better. It is a conditional or reciprocal action. For each of us is a complete thought entity, and the completeness makes it possible for us to receive only as we give. We cannot obtain what we lack if we tenaciously cling to what we have. Yeah, Like greed is a very real thing, right? We have 7 virtues, we have 7 vices, and we are supposed to achieve the balance between them. So greed and charity is one of those things. You are meant to have things. Anybody telling you that you're not meant to have things is telling you incorrectly. But you are not meant to cling to those things to the point where they become the idol of worship to you. You should have things, but you should be relatively good with getting rid of those things too. The principle of attraction operates to bring us only what may be to our advantage. We are able consciously to control our conditions as we come to sense the purpose of what we attract, and are able to extract from each experience only what we require for our further growth. Our ability to do this determines the degree of harmony or happiness we attain. The ability to appropriate what we require for our growth continually increases as we reach higher planes and broader visions, and the greater our ability to know what we require, the more certain we shall be to discern its presence, to attract it, and to absorb it. Nothing may reach us except what is necessary for our growth. All conditions and experiences that come to us do so for our benefit. That is patently untrue. You will be tested, you will be tried, and therefore things will happen to you. You are not meant to completely overcome all things. You are meant to be here on this plane. That is why we are here on this plane. This is not a prison planet. This is not a punishment. It is a voluntary existence. We have voluntarily accepted the individualized piece of God that is our soul that pilots this meat suit, the temple. And as a voluntary experience, we come here for growth. We come here for trials. We come here to learn. We come here to succeed, yes, but sometimes to fail. You can focus on the positive and pull the positive into your life. That is true. But regardless of how you are doing with your thoughts, there will be negative that will happen to you. Some conditions and experiences that come to you will be for your benefit, but they will not feel like that. And so you should be aware of that, right? It is necessary for your growth, but most people are not going to see that trial as a growth opportunity. That is something that you have to train your mind to do. You have to put your soul into it. You have to decide that no matter what happens, you are going to accept it as a benefit. It is not a natural impulse to do so, right? If you lose a person in your life that you feel important, your wife, your spouse, anybody in your family, your wife or your spouse, that was dumb, your wife or your children or anybody else in your family, if they pass on, you're going to have a hard time finding out how that's for a benefit, right? You have to put the energy into that. But we are here to experience grief. It is part of the learning experience, and so it is a benefit to you. So while it is a slight difference that I am talking about here, I want to make sure that it is clear. Nothing will reach you except what is necessary for your growth. Yes, that is true, but you may not recognize it as such, and so you should train yourself to recognize that. Even the difficulties and obstacles. Difficulties and obstacles, and see, I stop because I feel it, and then it's the next line. So difficulties and obstacles will continue to come until we absorb their wisdom and gather from them the essentials of further growth. That we reap what we sow is mathematically exact. We gain permanent strength exactly to the extent of the effort required to overcome our difficulties. That is very true. The inexorable requirements of growth will demand that we exert the greatest degree of attraction for what is perfectly in accord with us. Our highest happiness will be best attained through our understanding of the conscious cooperation with natural laws. Our mind forces are often bound by the paralyzing suggestions that come to us from the crude thinking of the race, and which are accepted and acted upon without question. Impressions of fear, of worry, of disability, and of inferiority are given to us daily. These are sufficient reasons in themselves why men achieve so little, why the lives of multitudes are so barren of results, when all the time there are possibilities within them which need only the liberating touch of appreciation and wholesome ambition to expand it into real greatness. Women, perhaps even more than men, have been subject to these conditions. This is true because of their finer susceptibilities, making them more open to the thought vibrations from other minds, and because the flood of negative and repressive thoughts have been aimed more especially at them. That is in large part true, right? There are differences between the male and the feminine mind. Men are less concerned with the feelings than women are, and so, as a general rule, not as a overarching every single one. And they do tend to be a little bit more susceptible to the negative. But it is being overcome. Florence Nightingale overcame it when she rose in the Crimea to heights of tender sympathy and executive ability before unknown among women. Clara Barton, the head of the Red Cross, a horrible organization that you should never give any money to, overcame it when she wrought a similar work in the armies of the Union. Jenny Lind overcame it when she showed her ability to command enormous financial rewards while at the same time gratifying the passionate desire of her nature and reaching the first rank of her day in musical art. And there is a long list of women, singers, philanthropists, writers, and actresses who have proved themselves capable of reaching the greatest literary, dramatic, artistic, and sociological achievement. Women, as well as men, are beginning to do their own thinking. They just started, huh? They have awakened to some conception of their possibilities. They demand that if life holds any secrets, these shall be disclosed. At no previous time has the influence and potency of thought received such careful and discriminating investigation. While a few seers have grasped the great fact that mind is the universal substance, the basis of all things, never before has this vital truth penetrated the more general consciousness. Many minds are now striving to give this wonderful truth definite utterance. Modern science has taught us that light and sound are simply different intensities of motion, and this may lead to discovery of forces within man that could not have been conceived of until this revelation was made. A new era has dawned, and now, standing in its light, man sees something of the vastness of the meaning of life, something of its grandeur. Within that life is the germ of infinite potencies. One feels convinced that man's possibility of attainment cannot be measured, that boundary lines to his own onward march are unthinkable. Standing on this height, he finds that he can draw new power to himself from the infinite energy of which he is a part. Part 2. Some men seem to attract success, power, wealth, attainment with very little conscious effort. Others conquer with great difficulty. Still others fail altogether to reach their ambitions, desires, and ideals. Why is this so? Why should some men realize their ambitions easily, others with difficulty, and still others not at all? The cause cannot be physical, else the most perfect man, physically, would be the most successful. The difference, therefore, must be mental, must be in the mind. Hence, mind must be the creative force, must constitute the sole difference between men. It is mind, therefore, which overcomes environment and every obstacle in the path of men. That is in large part true, too. It is the actualizing of interior quality through the creative power of thought which has given us great leaders like Alexander, Napoleon, Cromwell, Marlborough, and Washington, captains of industry like Carnegie, Morgan, Rockefeller, and Leverhulme, inventors like Stephenson, Morse, Marconi, Edison, Tesla, and a host of others. If, then, the only difference between men lies in their ability to think, to use and control their thought, to develop it, if the secret of all success, all power, all attainment is the creative power of mind, the force of thought, surely the ability to think correctly should become the paramount object of every man. That is true. When the creative power of thought is fully understood, its effect will be seen to be marvelous. But such results cannot be secured without proper application, diligence, and concentration. The student will find that the laws governing in the mental and spiritual world are as fixed and infallible as in the material world. To secure the desired results, then, it is necessary to know the law and to comply with it. A proper compliance with the law will be found to produce the desired result with invariable exactitude. The student who learns that power comes from within, that he is weak only because he is dependent on help from outside, and who unhesitatingly throws himself on his own thought, instantly rights himself, stands erect, assumes a dominant attitude, and works miracles. Scientists tell us that we live in the universal ether. This is formless of itself, but it is pliable and forms about us, in us, and around us, according to our thought and word. That is true. Right, we talk about the forces, right? There is an electromagnetic force that permeates the entirety of everything, and everything in relation to other things is a emanation of it. The forces that hold you together are magnetic. The forces that hold every piece of matter together is magnetic. It is the forces of attraction working in accordance with the laws of the creation. And so we do live in this universal ether. That is the electromagnetic forces of creation. It is formless of itself, and it is pliable, and forms about us, in us, and around us according to our thoughts and words. We've already talked about that. The things you think of are what come to you. You attract that. That is one of the 8 laws of creation. And what you speak amplifies that. Right? You have devices within you. There are 7 internal and 1 external chakras that you have access to. The top and the bottom, the base and the crown, they are receivers. They receive information. The next 2, the third eye and the sacral, they are the ones that attract what you are focused on. The next 2, the throat and the solar plexus, are amplification devices. They amplify the desires of the previous 2. And then the heart melds together the upper and the lower into your true desire and pushes that out into your divine chakra. That is how manifestation works. We set it into activity by that which we think. Then, that which manifests to us objectively is that which we have thought or said. Thought is governed by law, the 8 laws of creation. The reason we have not manifested more faith is because of lack of understanding. We have not understood that everything works in exact accordance with definite law. The law of thought is as definite as the law of mathematics or the law of chemistry or the law of electricity or the law of gravitation. When we begin to understand that happiness, health, success, prosperity, and every other condition or environment are results, and that these results are created by right thinking, either consciously or unconsciously, we shall realize the importance of working knowledge of the laws governing thought. Again, the 8 laws of creation. Those coming into a conscious realization of the power of thought find themselves in possession of the best that life can give. Substantial things of a higher order become theirs. And these sublime realities are so constituted that they can be made tangible parts of daily personal life. They realize a world of higher power and keep that power constantly working. This power is inexhaustible, limitless, and they are, therefore, carried forward from victory to victory. Obstacles that seem insurmountable are overcome. Enemies are changed to friends. Conditions are overcome. Elements transformed. Fate is conquered. The supply of good is inexhaustible, and the demand can be made along whatever lines we may desire. This is the mental law of demand and supply. Our circumstances and environment are formed by our thoughts. We have, perhaps, been creating these conditions unconsciously. If they are unsatisfactory, the remedy is to consciously alter our mental attitude and see our circumstances adjust themselves to the new mental condition. There is nothing strange or supernatural about this. It is simply the law of being. The thoughts which take root in the mind will certainly produce fruit after their kind, according to the 8 laws of creation. The greatest schemer cannot gather grapes or thorns or figs or thistles. To improve our conditions, we must first improve ourselves. Our thoughts and desires will be the first to show improvement. That is true. To be in ignorance of the laws governing in the mental world is to be like a child playing with fire, or a man manipulating powerful chemicals without a knowledge of their nature and relations. This is universally true because mind is the one great cause which produces all conditions in the lives of men and women. Admitting that you agree with everything that has been stated thus far, and most persons will take no exception to anything that has been said, it still remains to make a practical application of the law. In order to take advantage of this law and put ourselves into harmonious relationship with it, so that the benefit may be made manifest in our lives, it is necessary to see that the conditions are all met for its proper operation. We may know the laws governing electricity, we may have all the proper mechanism, the light, lamps, the wires, the switches, and we may even know how to generate the power. But if the connections are not properly made, we can work the switch till doomsday and no light will appear. So with the law of attraction. It is in operation all the time, everywheres. Something is constantly being created, something is appearing, everything is continually changing. But to take advantage of this process, it is just as necessary to comply with the law as it is in the case of gravity or electricity or gravitation. And the law of attraction is one of the laws of creation. Mind is creative and operates through the law of attraction. We are not to try to influence any to do what we think they should do. Each individual has a right to choose for himself. But aside from this, we would be operating under the law of force, which is destructive in its nature and just the opposite of the law of attraction. A little reflection will convince you that all of the great laws of nature operate in silence, and that the underlying principle is the law of attraction. It is one of the 8. It is only destructive processes such as earthquakes and catastrophes that employ force. Nothing good is ever accomplished in that way. No. Force is the application of will, right? No matter which direction it is applied, whether it is towards creation or destruction, it is the same force. It is the same application of will. So I do disagree with this in small part, right? I get the overarching message, but it is important distinctions. It really is. This force can work either way. There are forces things that employ force that are for the good. Building projects, like when you build your house, that is an application of force. You can't really say that it's destructive to create. In small part, yes, you cut the wood, you make the materials fit. There is even waste, but it is a constructive effort, right? There are destructive efforts too. It is an important distinction to make. To be successful, attention must invariably be directed to the creative plane. It must never seek to deprive. You do not wish to take anything away from anyone else. The laws of creation. You want to create something for yourself, and what you want for yourself, you are perfectly willing that everyone else should have. You know that it is not necessary to take from one to give to another, but that the supply for all is abundant. Nature's storehouse of wealth is inexhaustible, and if there seems to be a lack of supply anywhere, it is only because the channels of distribution are as yet imperfect. That is true. Abundance is a natural law of the universe. It is part of the first law of the universe, right? All things are one. Nothing can be created nor destroyed. The evidence of this law is conclusive. We see it on every hand. Everywhere, nature is lavish, wasteful, extravagant. Nowhere is economy observed in any created thing. Profusion is manifested in everything. The millions and millions of trees and flowers and plants and animals, and the vast scheme of reproduction where the process of creating and recreating is forever going on. All indicates the lavishness with which nature has made provision for man. That there is an abundance for everyone is evident, but that may seem to have been separated from this supply is also evident. They have not yet come into realization of the universality of all substance, and that mind is the active principle which starts, causes in motion, whereby we are related to the things we desire. It is evident, therefore, that he who fails to fully investigate and take advantage of the wonderful progress which is being made, in this last and greatest science will soon be as far behind as the man who would refuse to acknowledge and accept the benefits which have accrued to mankind through an understanding of the laws of electricity. Of course, the man mind creates negative conditions just as readily as favorable conditions, and when we consciously or unconsciously visualize every kind of lack, limitation, and discord, we create these conditions. This is what many are unconsciously doing all of the time. That is again true. This law, as well as every other law, is no respecter of persons, but is in constant operation and is relentlessly bringing to each individual exactly what he has created. In other words, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Abundance, therefore, depends upon a recognition of the laws of abundance, and the fact that mind is not only the creator, but the only creator of all there is. Nothing, certainly nothing, can be created before we know that it can be created, and then make the proper effort. There is no more electricity in the world today than there was 50 years ago, but until someone recognized the law by which it could be made of service, we received no benefit. That's not entirely true, right? Apparently this was back when electricity was still a fairly new, useful revelation. It had been around for a while, but creation of electricity is a real thing, right? Yes, there are natural electrical currents, and yes, there are available electricity, but we do actively create it through the use of rotors and wires and magnets and all kinds of other things. We do create it. And so there is more. Now, that is simply a reshaping of forces that were present, sure, but we are creating it. Now that the law is understood, practically the whole world is lit by it. There are still large portions of the world that are not even now. So with the law of abundance, it is only those who recognize the law and place themselves in a harmony with it who share in its benefits. That is true, though. A recognition of the law of abundance develops certain mental and moral qualities, among which are courage, loyalty, tact, sagacity, individuality, and constructiveness. These are all modes of thought, and as all thought is creative, they manifest in objective conditions corresponding with the mental condition. This is necessarily true because the ability of the individual to think is his ability to act upon the universal mind and bring it into manifestation. It is the process whereby the individual becomes a channel for the differentiation of the universal. Every thought is a cause and every condition an effect. This principle endows the individual with seemingly transcendental possibilities, among which is the mastery of conditions through the creation and recognition of opportunities. This creation of opportunity implies the existence or creation of the necessary qualities or talents which are thought forces, and which result in a consciousness of power which future events cannot disturb. It is this organization of victory or success within the mind, this consciousness of power within which constitutes the responsive harmonious action whereby we are related to the objects and purposes which we seek. This is the law of attraction in action. This law, being the common property of all, can be exercised by anyone having sufficient knowledge of its operation. Again, that is true. Courage is that power of the mind which manifests in the love of mental conflict. It is a noble and lofty sentiment. It is equally fitted to command or obey. Both require courage. It often has a tendency to conceal itself. There are men and women, too, who apparently exist only to do what is pleasing to others. But when the time comes and the latent will is revealed, we find under the velvet glove an iron hand, and no mistake about it. True courage is cool, calm, and collected. It is never foolhardy, quarrelsome, ill-natured, or contentious. Again, true. Accumulation is the power to reserve and preserve a part of the supply which we are constantly receiving, so as to be in a position to take advantage of the larger opportunities which will come as soon as we are ready for them. Has it not been said, to him that hath shall be given? All successful businessmen have this quality well developed. James J. Hill, who recently died leaving an estate of over $52 million, said, "If you want to know whether you are destined to be a success or a failure in life, you can easily find out. The test is simple and it is infallible. Are you able to save money? If not, drop out. You will lose. You may not think not, but you will lose as sure as you live. The seed of success is not in you." This is very good as far as it goes, but anyone who knows the biography of James J. Hill knows that he acquired his $50 million by following the exact methods we have given. In the first place, he started with nothing. He had to use his imagination to idealize the vast railroad which he projected across the western prairies. He then had to come into a recognition of the law of abundance in order to provide the ways and means for materializing it. Unless he had followed out this program, he would never have had anything to save. Accumulativeness acquires momentum. The more you accumulate, the more you desire, and the more you desire, the more you accumulate, so that it is but a short time until the action and reaction acquire a momentum that cannot be stopped. It must, however, never be confounded with selfishness, miserliness, or penuriousness. They are perversions and will make any true progress impossible. That is, finding the balance between greed and charity. Constructiveness is the creative instinct of the mind. It will readily be seen that every successful businessman must be able to plan, develop, or construct. In the business world, it is usually referred to as initiative. It is not enough to go along in the beaten path. New ideas must be developed, new ways of doing things. It manifests in building, designing and planning, inventing, discovering, improving. It is a most valuable quality and must be constantly encouraged and developed. Every individual possesses it in some degree, because he is a center of consciousness in the infinite and eternal energy from which all things proceed. Water manifests on three planes, as ice, as water, and as steam. It is all the same compound. The only difference is the temperature, the amount of vibration. But no one would try to drive an engine with ice, convert it into steam, and it easily takes up the load. So with your energy, if you want it to act on the creative plane, you will have to begin by melting the ice with the fire of imagination. And you will find that the stronger the fire, the more ice you melt, the more powerful your thought will become, and the easier it will be for you to materialize your desire. Sagacity is the ability to perceive and cooperate with natural law. True sagacity avoids trickery and deceit as it would the leprosy. That is one of the laws of returns, the 8 laws of creation. It is the product of that deep insight which enables one to penetrate into the heart of things and understand how to set causes in motion which will inevitably create successful conditions. Tact is a very subtle and, at the same time, very important factor in business success. It is very similar to intuition. To possess tact, one must have a fine feeling, must instinctively know what to say or what to do. In order to be tactful, one must possess sympathy and understanding. That understanding which is so rare, for all men see and hear and feel, but how desperately few understand. Tact enables one to foresee what is about to happen and calculate the result of actions. Tact enables us to feel when we are in the presence of physical, mental, and moral cleanliness, for these are today invariably demanded as the price of success. Loyalty is one of the strongest links which bind men of strength and character. It is one which can never be broken with impunity. The man would never lose his right hand rather than betray a friend will never lack friends. The man who will stand in silent guard until death, if need be, beside the shrine of confidence or friendship of those who have allowed him to enter it, will find himself linked with a current of cosmic power which will attract desirable conditions only. It is inconceivable that one should ever meet with lack of any kind. Individuality is the power to unfold your own latent possibilities, to be a law unto ourselves, to be interested in the race rather than the goal. Strong men carry nothing for the flock of imitators who trot complacently behind them. They derive no satisfaction in the mere leading of large numbers or the plaudits of the mob. This pleases only petty natures and inferior minds. Individuality glories more in the unfolding of the power within than in the servility of the weakling. Individuality is a real power inherent in all, and the development and consequent expression of this power enables one to assume the responsibility of directing his own footsteps, rather than stampeding after some self-assertive bellwether. Truth is the imperative condition of all well-being. To be sure to know truth and to stand confidently on it is a satisfaction besides which no other is comparable. See the Unconventional Bible Study. Truth is the underlying verity, the condition precedent to every business or social relation. Truth is the only solid ground in a world of conflict, doubt, and danger. Every act not in harmony with truth, whether through ignorance or design, cuts the ground from under our feet, leads to discord, inevitable loss, and confusion. For while the humblest mind can accurately foretell the result of ever correct action, the greatest, most profound, and penetrating mind loses its way hopelessly and can form no conception of the results due to a departure from correct principles. Those who establish within themselves the requisite elements of true success have established confidence, organized victory, and it only remains for them to take such steps from time to time as the newly awakened thought force will direct, and herein rests the magical secret of all power. Less than 10% of our mental processes is conscious. The other 90% is subconscious and unconscious. So that he who would depend upon his conscious thought alone for results is less than 10% efficient. Those who are accomplishing anything worthwhile are those who are enabled to take advantage of this greater storehouse of mental wealth. It is in the vast domain of the subconscious mind that great truths are hidden, and it is here that thought finds its creative power, its power to correlate with its object, to bring out the unseen, out of the unseen, the seen. This is one of the reasons why speaking aloud is so important, right? We talk of the I am statements. I am wealthy. I am healthy. I am successful, right? The I am is an important part of it, right? It is I and I am at the same time. Speaking these things aloud reinforces into your subconscious mind that that is what you want. The repeated use of these directed energies changes the way that your mind thinks. It takes away that negative spin that you tend to put on things and instead puts a positive one on it. It is not immediate. It takes time, right? You have to go through the process and you have to do it repeatedly, day after day, even when you don't really feel it. Get up in the morning and say your I am statements. I am healthy. I am wealthy. I am wise. I am a success. I am going to achieve my dreams. I am. Those statements are very important. It tells your mind to focus in the right direction. Those familiar with the laws of electricity understand the principle that electricity must always pass from higher to lower potentiality and can therefore make whatever application of power they desire. Those not familiar with this law can affect nothing. And so, with the law governing in the mental world, those who understand that mind penetrates all things, is omnipresent, and is responsive to every demand, can make use of the law and can control conditions, circumstances, and environment. The uninformed cannot use it because they do not know it. The fruit of this knowledge is, as it were, a gift of the gods, of God, not the gods. There is only one, that is one of the 8 laws of creation. It is the truth that makes men free, not only free from every lack and limitation, but free from sorrow, worry, and care. It is not wonderful to realize that this law is no respecter of persons, that it makes no difference what your habit of thought may be. The way has been prepared. With the realization that this mental power controls and directs every other power which exists, that it can be cultivated and developed, and no limitation can be placed upon its activity, it will become apparent that it is the greatest fact in the world, the remedy for every ill, the solution for every difficulty, the gratification of every desire. In fact, that it is the Creator's magnificent provision for human emancipation. That is true. Part 3. The scientific spirit now dominates every field of effort. Relations of cause and effect are no longer ignored. The discovery of a reign of law marked an epoch in human progress. It eliminated the element of uncertainty and caprice from men's lives and substituted law, reason, and certitude. Men now understand that for every result there is an adequate and definite cause, so that when a given result is desired, they seek the condition by which alone this result may be attained. The basis upon which all law rests was discovered by inductive reasoning, which consists of comparing a number of separate instances with one another until the common factor which gives rise to them all is seen. It is this method of study to which the civilized nations owe the greater part of their prosperity and the more valuable part of their knowledge. It has lengthened life, it has mitigated pain, it has spanned rivers, it has brightened night with the splendor of day, extended the range of vision, accelerated motion, annihilated distance, facilitated intercourse, and enabled men to descend into the sea and to soar in the air. What wonder then that men soon endeavored to extend the blessings of this system of study to their method of thinking, so that when it became plainly evident that certain results followed a particular method of thinking, it only remained to classify these results. This method is scientific, and it is the only method by which we shall be permitted to retain that degree of liberty and freedom which we have been accustomed to look upon as an inalienable right, because a people is safe at home and in the world only if national preparedness means such things as growing surplus of health, accumulated deficiency in public and private business of whatever sort, continuous advance in the science and art of acting together, and the increasingly dominant endeavor to make all of these and all other aspects of national development center and revolve about ascending life, single and collective, for which the science, art, and ethics furnish guidance and controlling motives. The master key is based on absolute scientific truth and will unfold the possibilities that lie dormant in each individual and teach how they may be brought into powerful action to increase the person's effective capacity, bringing the added energy, discernment, vigor, and mental elasticity. The student who gains an understanding of the mental laws which are unfolded will come into the possession of an ability to secure results hitherto undreamed of, and which has rewards hardly to be expressed in words. It explains the correct use of both the receptive and active elements of the mental nature, and instructs the student in the recognition of opportunity. It strengthens the will and reasoning powers, and teaches the cultivation and best uses of imagination, desire, the emotions, and the intuitional faculty. It gives initiative, tenacity of purpose, wisdom of choice, intelligent sympathy, and a thorough enjoyment of life on its higher planes. The master key teaches the use of mind power. True mind power, not any of the substitutes and perversions. It has nothing to do with hypnotism, magic, or any of the more or less fascinating deceptions by which many are led to think that something can be had for nothing. We're going to pause right here and talk because I deal in magic. You may not call it that, but I do. I have affected change in my own life. And by that, I don't mean positive thinking. Right? That is there. That is something that I have done. But I have effected healing within my own life through the direct, intentional manipulation of the electromagnetic forces of creation given to us as the Holy Spirit and allowed by the soul to manipulate. Right? We are able, because of the soul, to manipulate those forces to a small degree, not necessarily to a large one. I have affected healing in my life. I can talk to you right now simply because of that. I have healed my shoulder. I've talked about it before, but I had shoulder surgery twice 2 decades ago. I got 80% of the use of my shoulder from those surgeries. And here recently, I now have 100% use of my shoulder. It is through magic. It is through manifestation. The part of why I am doing this is because that has worked, and this allows me to talk about these things in ways that are brought to light by the text. Right? It keeps me on track in large point. And so I do have contention with this particular part. You don't create something from nothing. It is not an instantaneous thing that happened either with my voice or my shoulder. It was a process, and it took time, but it was through the direct manipulation of the electromagnetic forces of creation. The master key cultivates and develops the understanding which will enable you to control the body and thereby the health. It improves and strengthens the memory. It develops insight, the kind of insight which is so rare, the kind which is the distinguishing characteristic of every successful businessman, the kind which enables men to see the possibilities as well as the difficulties in every situation, the kind which enables men to discern opportunity close at hand, for thousands fail to see opportunities almost within their grasp, while they are industriously working with situations which, under no possibility, can be made to realize any substantial return. The master key develops mental power, which means that others instinctively recognize that you are a person of force, of character, that they want to do what you want them to do. It means that you attract men and things to you, that you are what some people call lucky, that things come your way, that you have come to an understanding of the fundamental laws of nature, the 8 laws of creation, and have put yourself in harmony with them, that you are in tune with the infinite, that you understand the law of attraction, the natural laws of growth, and the psychological laws on which all advantages in the social and business world rest. Mental power is creative power. It gives you the ability to create for yourself. It does not mean the ability to take away something from someone else. Nature never does things that way. Not true. Nature makes 2 blades of grass grow where one grew before, and mind power enables man to do the same thing. And when I say it is not true, it is because of this. A deer comes along and eats both them blades of grass. A bear comes along and eats that deer. A man comes along and eats that bear. That is taking away from something else in order to make something else, right? Eating is naturally that. That doesn't mean it's evil. It doesn't mean it's bad, and you shouldn't be doing it to excess. But it is indeed taking away from something in order to grow something else. It is part of the spiritual evolution, which is a whole nother thing. Check out the Infinite Integrations playlist if that strikes your curiosity. The master key develops insight and sagacity, increased independence, and the ability and disposition to be helpful. It destroys distrust, depression, fear, melancholia, and every form of lack, limitation, and weakness, including pain and disease. It awakens buried talent, supplies initiative, force, energy, vitality. It awakens an appreciation of the beautiful in art, literature, and science. It has changed the lives of thousands of men and women by substituting definite principles for uncertain and hazy methods. And principles are the foundation upon which every system of efficiency must rest. Albert Gary, the chairman of the United States Steel Corporation, said, "The services of advisors, instructors, efficiency experts, and successful management are indispensable to most business enterprises of magnitude, but I deem the recognition and adoption of the right principles of vastly more importance." The Master Key teaches right principles and suggests methods for making a practical application of the principles, in that it differs from every other course of study. It teaches that the only possible value which can attach to any principle is in its application. Many read books, take home study courses, attend lectures all their lives, without ever making any progress in demonstrating the value of the principles involved. The Master Key suggests methods by which the value of the principles taught may be demonstrated and put in actual practice in the daily experience. There is a change in the thought of the world. This change is silently transpiring in our midst, and is more important than any which the world has undergone since the downfall of paganism. The present revolution, in the opinions of all classes of men, the highest and most cultured of men as well as those of the laboring class, stands unparalleled in the history of the world. Science, has of late made such vast discoveries, has revealed such an infinity of resources, has unveiled such enormous possibilities and such unsuspected forces, that scientific men more and more hesitate to affirm certain theories as established and indubitable, or to deny certain other theories as absurd or impossible. And so a new civilization is being born. Customs, creeds, and cruelty are passing. Vision, faith, and service are taking their place. None of that has happened. The fetters of tradition are being melted off from humanity, and as the dross of materialism is being consumed, thought is being liberated, and truth is rising full-orbed before the astonished multitude. That has not taken place, right? We have not seen, right, customs, creeds, and cruelty. Well, some customs are born, right? Creeds and cruelty passing, not necessarily. We still see sufficient evidence of that today. Vision, faith, and service taking their place? Where? Show me that one, right? That is what I am attempting to do. That is what I am endeavoring, right? That is the direction we are going here, but that is not the direction of the entirety of the world, nor will it ever be, right? I want to affect as many people as I can. I want to show them that there is another path, another way to achieve, to do, to grow, to be. I am goaled towards that. But I don't expect the whole world to come along. This is a narrow path. It is not easy. It is somewhat difficult. And most people will not have the dedication it takes to walk it. That is true. And so it is not the destiny of humanity to walk this path. It is the destiny of a very few people who actually want to. The whole world is on the eve of a new consciousness, a new power, and a new realization of the resources within the self. The last century saw the most magnificent material progress in history. The present century will produce the greatest progress in mental and spiritual power. That did not happen, right? We are 100 years past this, and it has not happened. So that century he's talking about did not bear that fruit. Physical science has resolved matter into molecules, molecules into atoms, atoms into energy, and it has remained for Sir Ambrose Fleming in an address before the Royal Institution to resolve this energy into mind. He says, "In its ultimate essence, energy may be incomprehensible by us, except as an exhibition of the direct operation of that which we call mind or will. Let us see what are the most powerful forces in nature. In the mineral world, everything is solid and fixed. In the animal and vegetable kingdom, it is in a state of flux, forever changing. It is that way in the mineral world, too. They are constantly being assimilated into the living organisms, always being created and recreated. In the atmosphere, we find heat, light, and energy. Each realm becomes finer and more spiritual as we pass from visible to the invisible, from the coarse to the fine, from the low potentiality to high potentiality. When we reach the invisible, we find energy in its purest and most volatile state. And as the most powerful forces of nature are the invisible forces, so we find that the most powerful forces of man are his invisible forces, his spiritual force. And the only way in which the spiritual force can manifest is through the process of thinking. Thinking is the only activity which the spirit possesses, and thought is the only product of thinking. Addition and subtraction are therefore spiritual transactions. Reasoning is a spiritual process. Ideas are spiritual conceptions. Questions are spiritual searchlights and logic. Argument and philosophy is spiritual machinery. Every thought brings into action certain physical tissue, parts of the brain, nerve, or muscle. This produces an actual physical change in the construction of the tissue. Therefore, it is only necessary to have a certain number of thoughts on a given subject in order to bring about a complete change in the physical organization of a man. This is the process by which failure is changed to success. Thoughts of courage, power, inspiration, harmony are substituted for thoughts of failure, despair, lack, limitation, and discord. And as these thoughts take root, the physical tissue is changed and the individual sees life in a new light. All things have actually passed away. All things have become new. He is born again, this time born of the Spirit. Life has a new meaning for him. He is reconstructed and filled with joy, confidence, hope, and energy. He sees opportunities for success to which he was heretofore blind. He recognizes possibilities which before had no meaning for him. The thoughts of success with which he has been impregnated are radiated to those around him, and they in turn help him onward and upward. He attracts to him new and successful associates, and this in turn changes his environment. So that by this simple exercise of thought, a man changes not only himself, but his environment, circumstances, and conditions. You will see, you must see, that we are at the dawn of a new day, that the possibilities are so wonderful, so fascinating, so limitless, as to be almost bewildering. A century ago, any man with an airplane or even a Gatling gun could have annihilated a whole army equipped with the implements of warfare then in use. So it is at present. Any man with a knowledge of the possibilities contained in the master key has an inconceivable advantage over the multitude. And that is going to wrap up the introduction. I don't know that I have a whole lot more to add here than what I've already added. We are endeavoring to do this to see what the master key system is all about, really. I have dabbled in it before, but I never went through the whole thing, right? I took Napoleon Hill's interpretation of this and kind of went my own direction with it. And so I don't have a full understanding of exactly what is contained in here. And so we are going to discuss it. You heard me mention several times the 8 laws of creation that will be linked. And those are the laws which actually govern manifestation. The law of the one, the law of response, the law of returns. These things are how it works, right? I have had a direct revelation on these things, and it is through these processes he's talking about here, even if I didn't know these particular processes. It is through prayer, fasting, and meditation that I have attained the small measure of control of the electromagnetic forces of creation. It is through those things that I have affected change in my own life. A year ago, really, I couldn't even talk like this. When I first started this channel, 15 minutes of talking was hard, and I was way up here. It was really hard. I had a lump in my throat. It was a cyst. It was non-cancerous. But through the manipulation of these energies, I have removed that lump. It is by the grace of God. I don't ever want you to get it twisted, but He allows you to do that too. You can have control of the forces. It is best to keep them directed internally. The more that you do externally, the more the repercussions have a chance to injure you, right? That is in accordance with the 8 laws of creation. The infinite integration system, which is a playlist up here, is how I try to outline how I went about it. What we are doing here in these Esoterica and ancient lore playlists are talking about these same points in a different way. It is me expounding upon my informative in large part. It is me getting comfortable with the ideas. It is me revealing the things which have been revealed to me. And this gives us a structure and a framework by which to do it. And so I am anxious to see where this brings us. I don't disagree in large part with pretty much any of this. Anything that I have so far, we stop and talk about. We will continue doing that as we go along. So that's not the format for you. Be blessed. But hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat difficult topics. It is not all that difficult yet. I have a feeling it's going to get more difficult as we go along, but that's my standard spiel. I understand that I have some unconventional beliefs and a tendency to step on toes when I relay those beliefs. It is not intentional, but it's not something that I apologize for. So when I do correction, it is not meant in a mean-spirited way. It is merely me relaying to you where I differ with those ideas. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment if you agree or disagree. If it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. And if there is some work that you would like to see me do in the same manner that we are doing this, leave that in the comments as well. If you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks, because I do not manifest money. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt State. Peace.